Right. Well, hello there, and I think some of you were expecting Congressman Chris Smith, and unfortunately, you have me instead, and you don't even get a T-shirt out of it. So, but anyway, I'm very happy to be here on behalf of Congressman Chris Smith, and I wanted to talk a little bit about a resolution that he will drop today on Nigeria, along with Congressman French Hill, and it's a bipartisan resolution, and Henry Cuellar, and maybe one other Democrat as well. So we are working on that as we speak. But it is a resolution that is going to call for two things. One, that Nigeria be redesignated a country of particular concern. And two, that there be a special envoy designated for Nigeria and the Lake Chad region. Now, I'm sure as many of you know, Nigeria had been labeled a country of particular concern, and USIRF, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, has been very strong on this point. But unfortunately, 2 years ago, the State Department decided to delist Nigeria. This is something that really flies contrary to the facts on the ground and what we know, and the resolution gives a litany of abuses directed towards Christians and other Muslims and people of faith, by some very bad actors in Nigeria. What we do see is an ethno-religious chauvinism, and that combined with Islamist radicalism is pushing people, pushing Christian farmers in particular in the Middle Belt. Now, the State Department says that this is derived from farmer-herder conflict driven by climate change. That is not a false narrative, but it is one that is woefully, woefully incomplete. Okay? I think if you look at the history of Nigeria, you know that there had been Usman Dan Fodio in the late 18th century and 19th century. You had existing Muslim kingdoms there. He brought jihad against fellow Muslims and sought to establish a caliphate. Colonial history, Britain intervened and blocked that, but there was always this dream of a Nigeria under Sharia law. And in 2001, in August of 2001, there was an all-Sharia conference in Nigeria which set out a template. Attending that was President, or now President, Muhammadu Buhari. And we've seen in northern Nigeria, the institution of blasphemy laws and that are directed particularly against Christians, but other people that, other Muslims, other people that are deemed to be non-Orthodox. So this resolution will address that and recount that, but I do want to focus on one particular provision and one name in particular. As you may know, next month Nigeria will have a presidential election. And breaking all precedent, one of the parties, the All Progressives Congress, has nominated two Muslims for the ticket. In the past, it was always balanced between North and South, Christian and Muslim, and among Nigeria's various ethnic groups. And the presidential candidate for APC, is a well-known figure, Tinubu. Not the person to be concerned with. The person to be concerned with is the vice presidential candidate, Kashim Shettima. Remember that name. He used to be the governor of Borno State, and while there, he not only tolerated, but worked with Boko Haram and other radical jihadist groups. It is very well possible that he, if the APC ticket wins, he will become the vice president, then one heartbeat away from president. So remember that name, Kashim Shettima. The resolution does specifically name him. Now, with that, we talked about a special envoy. There's one person that, if we were going to create a position for, who would be, I think, an excellent special envoy, and that is someone who, long-serving member of Congress, who made religious freedom his passion. And he, in fact, when we redid the International Religious Freedom Act, it was named after him, and that person is Frank Wolf. And Frank Wolf is one of my personal heroes. And it sounds like he's the hero of many of you in this room as well. I'm going to give up the stage now, and you're going to hear from someone who really brings passion and compassion to this, and that is Frank Wolf. Thank you. Thank you, Frank. You are a hero.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, and I really appreciate you being here and having this dinner, and I appreciate Piero's comments. Piero works for one of the finest members of Congress, not only that I have ever served with, but one of the finest members of Congress that have ever served in Congress, Congressman Chris Smith. And when I heard that Chris was going to put this resolution in, I'm very, very grateful for him to do this. I would urge all of you to tell everybody you possibly can that's in Congress to co-sponsor this resolution. One, it will urge the administration to again designate Nigeria as a CPC country. The designation not only ought to be made, but there ought to be teeth with it, because we can no longer permit what's taking place in Nigeria to continue to take place. Secondly, there ought to be a special envoy, somebody for Nigeria and the Lake Chad region, almost a model for somebody who said, well, what? Almost like Senator John Danforth did in Southern Sudan. Somebody who has the respect, somebody who can focus like a laser beam on what's taking place. Boko Haram. Boko Haram is committing genocide, actual genocide against Christians and others. The Fulani militants are committing genocidal activity against Christians and others. You remember in 2014, the Boko Haram kidnapped the Chibok girls. And you know the world did hashtag bring back our girls. 50% of the girls have not come back. We should be doing everything we can to bring the girls back. And Leah Sharibu and others. So I think it's important. I would urge all of you to go contact every congressional office to have Chris Smith's name and French Hill's name and Mr. Quagar's name on it is really good. We need Republicans and Democrats to come together. And the passage of this resolution, the Congressman Smith resolution, could literally save the people of Nigeria. When you read the Open Doors report, Nigeria is one of the most dangerous places. I know many of you have been there as you travel through it. One of the most dangerous places. This can literally save thousands and thousands of lives. So we want to thank Chris Smith. God bless him. We want to thank French Hill and Henry Cuellar. God bless him. And I urge all of you, go tell every member of Congress, Republican and Democrat, one of the important things, when Chris and I and Congressman Tony Hall, who was my best friend in Congress on the Democratic side, used to travel, we would come back together and they were bipartisan issues. This should be totally and completely a bipartisan issue. And lastly, USERF, where I'm proudly serving, has made it very, very clear that USERF, looking at this thing very carefully, says there ought to be CPC designation, and it ought to be CPC designation with teeth. And USERF put out a statement saying they were outraged by the fact that the administration had withdrew it. And lastly, USERF has strongly supported the special envoy to work on the issue of terrorism, religious freedom, hunger, famine, and education so we can save Nigeria. Nigeria is the largest country in Africa, over 219 people. 219 million people, and in 2050 they will have more people in Nigeria than we have in the United States. So goes Nigeria, so goes all the west of Africa. Let's do everything we can for the Nigerian people by supporting the Chris Smith resolution. Thank you very much. God bless.